Questioning Everything with Garrett and Adam, Episode 10.
I'm going to digress this. This is a 3. This isn't even a 4. Because yours is easily 2 times clearer. And it's got better color resolution, and it's got better contrast and everything, right? So I'm gonna have to figure this out on my end, because I can use a DSLR or something.
You don't want to use this footage though for the YouTube.
Yeah, well, we're gonna use this on YouTube, but
it's perfect.
I'm just saying. Well, I mean, everybody has different standards, and I would prefer if the audio is better.
Buddy, if you watch the Jasta show, like he sits on his couch. I know, but it's not.
Welcome to the word standards that I set is now what I'm going to have to refer to. Because again, yeah, it's great that Jasta does it, but I honestly would prefer being audio people. We're all audiophiles. I'm a videophile. I'm an audiophile. I've got equipment. So why would you want to sound like poo?
No, I'm down with it, but I'm just saying that some of the big boys they've got a kind of a. They're running with it, and it's working for them. So, and
even the small boys, like Lex Friedman, he does everything on an iPhone, but he also has the good Sennheiser mics. So keep that in mind. He's got really good Sennheiser mics, and the Sennheiser mics make the world of a difference. It's the same mics that Joe Rogan uses, those black mics.
Oh, I watched the full episode, or listened to it with. What's his name there? Your buddy, the scientist, the dude that sounds like Seth Rogen sometimes. Fuck.
No idea who you're talking about. I don't even know who Seth Rogen is. Okay, scientist. Is it Brian Greene?
Astrophysicist.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
That's right.
Okay.
And
he poops all over everything.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, man, I just
he's limited though.
He's limited. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment.
Even Joe Rogan was like, "Come on, man."
Yeah, fucking Joe Rogan is. Of course, Joe fucking Rogan is. Like, nobody gives a fuck what if Joe Rogan cannot argue with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It only makes him look like an idiot. Yeah, he tries. He's like, yo, and getting all fucking popping uppity. Let's just chill the fuck out and remember that Neil deGrasse Tyson knows what he's talking about. I was happy because I don't like Neil deGrasse Tyson very much.
Really?
No, I haven't been happy with that guy in a long time. Just because of how preachy he is. If you want to talk about something, let's talk. But if you start using voice or neurolinguistics or imagery manipulations, any type of manipulation, or you're trying to use psychology to conjure the answer that you want from me, just things like that. Like, I can tell when people are starting to use verbal trickery or mentalism, and I'm opposed to it because I think that if you have something good to say, then just say it. He uses trickery and mentalism and wizardry, and it's all part of how he talks, how he presents things, and I get distracted by it. Like it's just this preacher thing, you know? Like the essence of the molecule,
and he brought a pauses,
you know. Oh yeah, but it's like it's these consonant holds, and it's preacher talk. It's Southern Baptist preacher talk, and like Martin Luther King used it, and it worked well. I'm sorry, but Neil deGrasse Tyson's not Martin Luther King. You know, he just needs to chill the fuck out with that whole preacher stuff. But the thing is that once he gets going and once he gets rolling, he always drops that and he just starts talking like a normal person. It's when he's trying to like capture your mind with something that he's like, I'm gonna blow your mind. You're like, okay, well, could you fucking stop being a fucking character? Like, honestly to God, dude, if you walked around talking like a WWE guy, people would be like, okay, Garrett, exactly. It's a great gag. It's a great gag. It's a fun thing, but you know,
in small doses.
Exactly. To particularly stress or enhance or make a statement better or make a moment better. And deGrasse could use that where he could just nail things down. But I think because he lives in a world of sound bites where people want him to say stuff that will then be played over and over and over and over and over again, he tries too hard. This last interview with Rogan, stellar. He recaptured me. Like I said, though, I wish our podcast had come out beforehand, because there's a lot of things, there's points that I've tried to make that he makes better than I could, right? And
well, I thought
not just on naysaying, just on.
I got upset for sure. You know, like when he was just kiboshing all the alien stuff, like they wouldn't do this, they wouldn't do that. Like the moon, like he was like the psychic energy stuff, the moon stuff, all that kind. He was just kibosh.
Well, of course, who wouldn't, right?
Well, I mean, but that's the problem with science to a degree, that it leaves out all possibility. It leaves out the possibility that stuff could be real. Like, there's no scientific evidence that proves that psychics are real. You just have to believe.
It reduces. Well, no, but you don't have to believe. You don't have to believe.
If you want to believe,
the smarter you get, the easier it is to not believe. Right? The more knowledge you have, the easier it gets to not believe. Neil deGrasse himself said enough to illustrate the fact that he knows. No, dude. Let's get it off. He
I have
knows.
to wear this one episode, though.
No. That'll be keeping it heavy.
What's that?
That'll be keeping it heavy.
Yeah.
He knows the limits of science, and if we were to watch it together, I could even find a little slice where he literally admits what people want to hear. He admits the blind spot.
Yeah.
Right?
What, Neil deGrasse? Okay, wait.
He admits the blind spot. Science has a blind spot.
Ah, yes.
Science knows it has a blind spot. Mathematics has a blind spot. Mathematics knows it has a blind spot, right? It is an issue, and one of the issues is that we are, as people, emergent, right? We we have properties in us that are emergent, and by emergent I mean that like Neil deGrasse Tyson was clarifying to Rogan, because Rogan doesn't know what fucking emergent means either, right? But we do have properties that are emergent, and those just mean that they're not the sum of our parts, right? We have things that are greater than the sum of our parts.
Well, that's my argument is, yeah, there are some loopholes there. Like I feel like the scientific understanding is so structured, and it's right. What he's saying is right. And it's so structured by experimentation, and like we're going to do an experiment, and this is the fact now.
Well, it's reducing, it's reductionism, right? So it's the elimination of something that you can prove is false. And so you eliminate everything until you're left with whatever you're left with. This is the thing, is that science doesn't create proofs. Math creates proofs. So math, you can say, I think this is my axiom, and then you form a proof. And by the end, somebody should be able to do the math every different way and try to trick that proof. And if that proof holds, then it's a real proof. And now that's the closest thing to a fact that we have in the world. Science doesn't do that. Science eliminates all of the erroneous things until what we're left with is something that we simply can't disprove yet. That's it, right? So it's not about finding truth. It's about removing untruth until all you're left with is the closest proximity of truth. But it's still, the whole time that that's just your ability to detect it, right?
Yeah.
So
so it leaves out the ghosts, the psychics, the aliens.
Well,
kind
of. But let's just say this: it doesn't have the ability to form an opinion on anything that it can't wrap itself around. Science doesn't have the ability to form an opinion on what your favorite color is. Well, no. Except for it's probabilistically going to be blue, and then red, and then green, and like we know the probabilistic percentages of people's favorite color. That's a bad example, maybe.
What's my favorite color?
Probabilistically, it's blue.
It's black. It's not a color.
Black's not a color.
Actually, no, my rig is blue. So you're right.
It's 73% of people's favorite color is blue, and there's
Blue.
like all the psychology shit's just blue, right? But that's a bad example. The fact is that if you say whether you're not, whether you like cilantro's genetical, whether or not you listen to, cilantro's
really?
Cilantro,
the herb.
Yeah, whether or not it tastes like soap or not is an allele, is a genetical thing.
I think it tastes like soap to me.
Quite often. But at any rate, there are things about you, about your personality, that science can't ever measure, because you just have to ask a person, like, do you like Tool or do you not like Tool? Science isn't going to be able to determine that by looking at your genes or looking at your cells or looking at your diet or any of that, right? So science, literally, the scientific method and the ability to use inquiry like that simply has no way to wrap itself around that. So anything that's emergent from us, that's part of our personality or part of our decision making or our willpower or anything like that, science will literally not be able to touch, because if you qualify Garrett keeping, whether you're dead or whether you're alive, that's the difference between those emergent qualities. Because if you're dead, the same cells exist, right, in the same organization, but you can no longer do anything and you can no longer answer questions. So everything about you that's emergent, we can kind of pretend we can study in a lab, but we can't, because it changes every moment. It's volatile. You know, you change your mind. The next day you might feel different, or whatever the case may be, right? So, and then the other thing is not just that, but also things that are indetectable, or we haven't figured out a detection system yet, or things that change when you try to detect it, or there's numerous reasons why science isn't the best tool to say try to discover whether ghosts are real. Right? Yeah. Because from the get-go, everybody already knows that we're not going to be able to use the scientific method to do anything other than look at the peripheries. But we can use it to look at the periphery. So the difference between today's world and the Middle Ages is not the fact that we believe in ghosts, because we always believed in ghosts. It's that now we have understandings of the electromagnetic frequencies. We have understandings about subtle frequencies, about neurological brain waves, and we can see the brain and MRIs and crap like that.
Yeah.
Now we understand things about the universe through science that might not seem like they're related, but if there's a ghost, it's a ghost in the same universe that we exist in the same universe that plants do, and sound and smell and everything else. So the more we learn about all that crap, the more we might be able to understand that which cannot be otherwise understood simply by learning enough around it. You'll never learn.
Well, he was pretty a matter of fact. It was a good episode, but yeah, there were certain points when he was just like, oh, that's preposterous. There's blah 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 blah. There's no psychics. You get a little frustrated. I'm like, oh. But I mean, what about it? What do you do, right? You just, I don't know. There's so much fucking stuff being released right now on the news, and just UFOs UFOs have made the headlines more lately than they have in years and years and years.
And it's
really weird.
I think he hints at that too. Really.
I don't think it's a distraction tactic. I think that it's slowly time to disclose, because the aliens are like, we're gonna fucking tell your people, or you're gonna tell your people. So do it. Get ready.
It's not a question of whether or not it's a distraction. It's a question of whether or not it's a psyop.
Psyop. What the hell was that again?
Psychological operation.
Well, yeah, I don't know, man.
I mean, you don't believe in psyops, but you believe in aliens. So
no.
Okay,
I never said that.
Okay.
I believe that that's totally plausible for sure. But have
you ever heard of a think tank?
We had this conversation, didn't we?
Yeah. So you remember what a think tank is?
Yeah, it's a bunch of people sitting around trying to fucking come up with ways to be divisive.
It's a bunch of people. It's a bunch of people who publish papers that are projections. So they're mostly imaginary, but they're what ifs and things like that. As far as large subjects, whether or not it's national security, or whether or not it's foreign relations, or whether or not it's economics, whether or not it's the relationship between the government and the people, they're really big things. So it's like Brave New World in 1984 meets social psychology, right? So it's everything how to fuck with people, to how to set it up so other countries think certain things that aren't true, to set it up so that you can use different various natural emergencies as a means to push particular agendas. They think about all sorts of things. They write papers, and then governments and rich people buy these publications, and it's almost like comes down to almost like a treatise on how to fuck with the world. So you've got things like how to create false flag events.
Ouch, that's scary.
You've got things like how to use weather as a force modifier, which is actually just a straight up Department of Defense paper. You've got how to it's just really wacky stuff, right? When it comes right down to it, though, using aliens to manipulate the people is one of these plans, right? Using pandemics to manipulate people is one of these plans. So there's just like all these, like, it's almost like a card game where you got numerous cards that you can either use independently or can combine them.
Let me ask you this question though. Did you see recently the pandemic's like coming to an end? That they are thinking that metal. Well, they're saying they're projecting that the concerts will be back full force by September 7th.
Yeah, I'm sure, dude. It's a fucking okay.
What do you think about that?
The scamdemic is coming to an end. This has been the biggest load of bullshit that we've lived through in our lifetime. Maybe through the entirety of the empire that you could call the North American empire system. The biggest load of shit. This is like creepy ass fucking somewhere between Germany and Italy and Japan and Russia and China. Creepy, man. This is dumb.
Definitely.
This is dumb.
Oh shit, dude! They brought up intuition too, that episode, by the way, and I was like, that fucking asshole. We went off about intuition, and Joe Rogan brought it up. That's the same way that I thought about it.
Yeah. People
are becoming way more intuitive, and I was like, yes.
Yeah. Honestly, man, I don't expect Joe Rogan to be interested in even debating the fine details. Thinking that you're somehow got like one up because you have a bad definition for a word compared to me is just ridiculous. I'm trying to do you a favor.
I'm not looking for
helping you understand the meaningful version of the word.
And then I tagged you in something, and you're like, yeah, no.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, whatever.
It's just a matter of how can we communicate the best. And
yeah, but if I was on the Joe Rogan podcast and brought up intuition, we would obviously agree, and you would be the guy there that would be arguing and would disagree with us.
I'm the only person who would actually also know what I'm talking about in the sense that I can describe it.
You and Neil would be like, yeah, fist bumps.
Well, no, it's like if you want to say like something ephemeral, and it's like kind of like this cloud, and it's kind of smoky, and it's, you can't see it, but it's there, and that's great. I'm talking about an actual psychological process which leads to a particular condition that we believe in ourselves, we call intuition. It has nothing to do with the magical, fucking mysterious, and as literally the fact that you don't understand what you're talking about is what allows you to look into this cloud and go, this cloud has form, this cloud is a thing, it exists. I'm looking at the cloud going, dude, that cloud is being produced by knowledge. If you didn't know anything, that cloud would never have shape. The only reason that you form an intuition at all is because of what you know. To think it's anything magical or like some mystical communication connection to the ether or some fucking shit is just, there's zero basis for it. You can think it all you want, but it's like, again, it's a cloud. It's talking about clouds rather than talking about real stuff. But Rogan
was on the same page as I was when I think.
Because Rogan doesn't understand fucking loads of shit. He just doesn't get it. Good. Right?
I like it. I'm good. So I'm with Rogan. Yeah, it's all right. Okay,
you're not with Rogan, dude. You're not with Rogan. You're not with Rogan. You don't fucking blow smoke up your ass.
But if I was,
and if you were, like, if you ever had a chance to be on fucking Tyson's side or Rogan's side, like, Lord God, you know.
I'm saying is Joe and I were talking about the same thing at that moment when he brought it up, and the other day when I brought it up, we were on the same page. We were speaking from the same page. We were reading. That's maybe. Where I'm like, oh,
maybe you guys were both just talking about something that had no definition. Nobody could really validate that you guys are talking about the same thing, or that you're even meaning the same thing.
Well, he was saying
because you're talking about something that you're not even defining.
People are becoming more intuitive, is what I think.
Exactly. What the fuck does that mean?
My definition of woke, but it's wrong. Woke, you don't want to be fucking woke. I just got woke right out of my fucking delivery job. So woke, my definition of woke, is woke like, yo, man, you're starting to tap into the intuition. You're starting to get a little more spiritual. You're starting to pull away from the matrix. Starting to think for yourself a little bit. There's been a lot of that going on too.
This is cloud talk though, man. Like, you gotta appreciate that you're talking cloud stuff. Like, you can't hammer any of it down. You can't draw it. You can't identify this shit.
I don't think a lot of people are that intuitive, or they ignore it.
Or that intuitive. They're not that smart, man. They're not that fucking informed, right?
Yeah. But hey, what were we talking about there, buds?
The subject today was supposed to be the
sacred geometry.
Sacred geometry.
Do you want to just go right into it? Because we just branched off from a topic that was cool.
Well, we were kind of talking about sacred geometry anyway.
We talk about the same thing a lot, and it's all right.
Yeah.
We always go back to aliens. What's that? Cool.
This is sacred geometry.
Yeah. You might want to. Can you see? There it is. Let the camera.
Yeah, I was actually trying to show you the stones, not the pictures.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
what's the point of that?
These are cardamom solids.
What?
So these are so sacred geometry. Did you watch that fucking horrible ass movie?
No, I want it. No, I'm going to watch it though. Okay, what was it? You turned it off.
Nobody should ever watch that. Well, I started watching it again and then turned it off, started watching. No, it's fucking the worst piece of shit movie that calls itself a movie that I had the displeasure of watching, called Sacred Geometry, the movie. And it was just bad, YouTube. Man. It was
on YouTube.
Oh yeah, it was on YouTube. But it was so bad. So bad. The thing is that the guy doesn't know what he's talking about, first of all, which is fine because most people don't, right? And he's just basically syncretizing a bunch of stuff. So he's taking all these ideas that he's come across on the internet and gluing them all together and saying, this is this idea. This is this idea. this is this idea. So he doesn't know whether or not ideas are valid. He doesn't know whether they apply to anything. He doesn't know what they apply to, if they do. He's not really all that informed, but he's got these basic aggregated bits glued together in a movie, 90% of which are just completely hokey. But there's 10%, or let's even use the 5% factor. Garrett's 5% factor theory. There's 5% that,
which is true,
is really quite good. And it's a shame that there's 95% that is like, it'll make you stupider. It will make you dumber if you watch this movie. I guarantee you. If you don't know any better, you're going to walk away looking at the world in a really bad way. But if he just had those 5% things, I think it'd be okay.
So you're going to educate me and the listeners we have on what the point of sacred geometry really is. Obviously, the pyramids are...
I'm definitely not going to, because I think
no,
I don't really care. I honestly don't care. If the listeners want to know, then they can maybe ask a question after. But I mean, for now, we can just talk about what we're like. First of all, can we remove the sacred? Can we just call it geometry from here?
Why is it called sacred geometry?
Because people are stupid.
In your opinion?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because people are stupid.
That's just it. Well, it's like somebody who discovered something at some point, and they discovered like the tip of the iceberg. It's a very itty bitty tip, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is religious." They had a religious experience. They realized that there's like some, relativism in geometry, and then they started calling it sacred because they didn't really get the whole picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back in time, let's go back in time to Greece, really, because Greeks were smarter than us. Just the average Greek is smarter than the average person today, right? I've said in a previous podcast that they had different values, and that was one of the reasons that they're smarter than us, because we don't value shapes and colors and sounds. You get hippies that are like, it's all the frequency, but we don't really value it, right? Like if you're like, draw that frequency in a geometric form.
Ohm symbol.
Yeah, no, that's not a geometric form. That's just a fucking symbol. But I'm telling you that people are just really dumb, so they're not going to be able to do it. So anybody in Greece who's like, yeah, it's the three note structure to all things, and here's the geometry that goes with it. Because they weren't dumb, they were really smart, right? Now, geometry isn't just sacred. Geometry is the sacred. The sacred is geometric. Literally. Mm-hmm. The thing that everybody in the world worships, the whole idea of sacred period, is geometric. So we don't have to call, it's a redundancy. It's like saying like holiest God. Well, of course, if it's God, it's holiest, right? Sacred is ingrained into geometry because of what it is and always has been. The pursuit of understanding geometry had nothing to do with figuring out where to put your ladder against your house, or some shit like that.
No, but they built pyramids.
Well, yeah, they built pyramids, but they did a lot of things. And geometry is like a really good example of an Ouroboros or something like that, where you just constantly keep coming back. It keeps constantly coming back to itself and consuming itself. The universe itself is like a toroidal shape and can be perceived of it. The most of the things that form in the universe, I mean, first of all, they're all crystalline, right? Everything that forms in the universe was crystalline. All of the molecules form crystalline patterns, which are geometric patterns. But it's not because there's something special about it. It's that which creates them, the formula that which creates the structure of atoms itself, is geometry, or is the spirit that
microscopic. Is that what you're saying?
More than microscopic, even. But yeah, I mean, it's like the deepest of the deep is geometrical, and the similances and the relativities and the relationships between everything and their geometry is everything. It's everything, and it's everything religious, and it's everything spiritual. If you think spiritual and religion and everything like that, just imagine that everybody that you know is a complete idiot. Just imagine that for a sec. And I know that's just Adam's negativity. Everybody's a complete idiot.
Not hard to imagine. What I was thinking
Everybody's
that's not hard to imagine.
Baby. Everybody's a child. And all of the religious ideologies that these children are fascinated with are based off of really simple, in a sense, but complex in another, principles that are described or understood through geometry. Because you can also understand then that geometry in and of itself isn't truly the thing that we're talking about. Geometry is just the expression of the thing, right? So things get deeper than geometry as well, because geometry isn't the fundamental building blocks of the things. It is the form or the expression of some kind of a macroscopic element of that very primal thing, but it's still the best visual and structural mathematical description that we have, right? So when you understand geometry, you are understanding everything. You're understanding light, sound, smell, taste. You're understanding physics. You're understanding biology. You're understanding mineralogy. Everything. And then relationships. Because relationships is what geometry is all about as well. Geometry
with another person, you mean?
Sure. And then
relationships with what?
Well, in the case of geometry, it's relationships between facets and angles and, essentially the relationships between the facets or other geometric things itself. Geometry is essentially built on relationships between points, right? So if you have 5 points, then they form this set of relationships. If you have 7 points, they form this set of relationships. And the relationships themselves are, the result of it is the geometry, right? Which is interesting because it's very much like us. Or if you want to say, break it down for us even internally, it's very much like our organs, right? Where our organs then communicate. They have a relationship with each other between our brain, our heart, our liver, our kidney, our pancreas, that create our sense experience, that create our self-awareness and our consciousness.
What?
Well, of course.
That's weird.
Right? But it's the geometry, it's the array, the shape of the array of these things that are in communication that influence how they can relate, and then the relationship that they have then produces what we call our consciousness and our self-awareness. And you pinch somebody's leg, and that's just part of that system, which is ultimately based on, multitudes of geometric, systems all throughout the scales, right? But everything is essentially, it's almost like trying to say everything could be interpreted mathematically. That might be more obvious, but the fact that it's a shape is part of its properties. The shape is why it acts as it acts, right? So there's these solids. These are the Platonic solids, and these are the 5 most primitive shapes that are equilateral facets. So each face is the same size and shape, and they're all equal angles, all equal, like equilateral triangle, equilateral pentagram. And they are the basic building blocks of absolutely everything. And the simplest shapes. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the Greeks were fascinated with them, right? Greeks were absolutely fascinated. And there's secrets in their mind. In their mind, there was secrets, right? Because they understood the relativism and where these shapes exist, and they started breaking things down. It's very, 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 very deep. It's not just the shape, because the shape is kind of like the sum of its parts. It's the relationships between the shapes. So you take something like a dodecahedron, which is a 12-sided crystal, and then when you start getting into the geometry, you start to get into these relativistic or relationship things where you've got multiple forms of geometry inside it, where like the relationship between this point and this point, or the relationship, you can't see that, this point or this point, or the relationship between this facet and the other two facets or three facets beside it, or it starts to get really complex, and then you start to see other more complicated shapes, like my favorite being the 9-pointed star, or the Enneagram.
Yeah, and there's a macrocosm and a microcosm to those shapes. Is that right?
No, not really, because the shapes are everywhere, right?
But they go inside each other into infinity.
Some of them, the whole point with the Platonic solids is that they're the smallest indivisible shape, right?
I'm just having a hard time
the solids themselves don't have other shapes inside them. The solids themselves are the basic building block shape that is inside everything. So they're the reduction.
How is this square inside of you?
How's the square inside of us?
You, yeah.
Oh, 1 billion times. Like more times than you could ever count. That'd be like, those pictures on Facebook where they're like, how many squares there? And there's a whole bunch of, and you got to like count, well, those squares together are a square, and, or how many triangles are there? Yeah. Well, just imagine an infinite amount, right? So wait a minute. And this is a cube, not a square.
That's how isn't that sort of how digital animation is built?
Well, digital animation is built on voxels or on triangles, right? Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying.
It's similar, except for those are 2-dimensional shapes that are glued together, right? Quite often, it's a 3D environment is produced where then you can take 2-dimensional, triangular, or whatever, however many sides it's got, usually triangle, and just stick them all together so that their vertices are touching, right? So it's still kind of a 2-dimensional thing. It's making 3 out of 2. The cube, the triangle, well, this isn't a triangle, this is a pyramid or a tetrahedron. The tetrahedron itself is probably the simplest, most strongest form, and everything else basically comes off of this. The square comes off of this. Everything basically, more or less, kind of comes off of this. The only reason that the other ones don't have this in it is because of the math, right? Actually, this does. Yeah. This is really just 2 tetrahedrons. Oh, no, that's 4-sided, and this is 3-sided. Never mind.
That's like D&D dice right there.
It is. Yeah. Well, I've got lots of sets of those too, and you do have like a dodecahedron. You've got a tetrahedron. You've got an octahedron quite often,
and a fucking triangle too, right?
Yeah. Here's the octahedron, and the tetrahedron. It's a 4-sided, right? So you got 4-sided, and then a cube is 6-sided.
Right. Duh.
Right. Yep. And
so this is how
there's no spheres.
But this is how everything's built in the universe.
Absolutely.
Which is fucking weird.
Everything. And the reason is because what creates everything in the universe is essentially a bunch of shapes, right? So it's not like really even all that weird. It's that shapes form shapes, and that which, before quarks and gluons and neutrinos.
An abstract painting, maybe why wouldn't it? Maybe like why couldn't it be like you look around, everything looks so random, right? Like the mountains are shaped a certain way, and the water and the lakes are moving, and how it just the road, everything. We don't live in a perfect structured universe.
We do though. We do absolutely.
No, as humans though, like but you don't like on as you look when you look out in the day, you see trees and everything's like abstract and everywhere.
Yeah. It's like looking at it's like looking at a tiny bit of a fractal though.
That's what I mean.
And being like, wow, look how random it is, right? But if you zoom out, you're like, oh fuck, this is a repeating pattern, and it's based off of math. So is the mountains and
controlled chaos.
Well, that's just it. Yeah, it's chaos. Isn't chaos? It's not really chaos, right? Chaos is different. Chaos is like undifferentiated.
But it looks chaotic though, sort of thing.
Yeah,
but when you zoom out,
absolutely,
you go,
then you see the pattern. Yes,
spiral.
Then you see the pattern. Exactly.
That's weird. That to me seems planned. Well, that's my point. It seems planned.
Well, this goes back to our first episode.
I have to shut something down. Here, go on.
Okay.
Sorry, keep going.
It goes back to our first episode of what's the difference.
Right? What's the difference?
I don't think it's planned. But what's the difference if it's planned or if it's how I see it, which is formulaic. I don't think that it's random, like if somebody's just like fucking randomized. No, it's not. It's that 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 2 = 3, 2 + 3 = 5, 3 + 5 = 8. No, that's not random. That's what I'm saying. It's not random, but it's formulaic. 100%. It's based off of formulas.
It's sacred. So why is it sacred? Sacred means God created shapes.
No, that's not what sacred means at all.
It's exactly what it means.
No. But we can have reverie and
pardon me?
We can have reverie, and there's no reason why somebody shouldn't perceive geometry with the type of reverie that it deserves, because geometry simply deserves reverie. Music deserves reverie.
Reverie means to appreciate, right?
Yeah, like really appreciate, like the deepest religious appreciation type thing.
Right.
Real reverie.
Sacred. There you go. Now we're getting back into sacred.
Yeah, and well, that's just it. And sacred's kind of a dumb word because, like, what does it mean? It's really.
You just don't like words like that because fucking ignorant people throw them around a lot.
Absolutely, that's my first problem with them.
Your beef is with ignorant people.
Yeah, it's like why I wouldn't want to associate with being religious quite often, and why I wouldn't want to associate with being a Christian for sure. Like, even though like Judeo-Christianity is very, very similar to how I see things a lot of the time, but I see things like in the like original philosophy of it, not in like Jesus was a man who was the Son of God and walked among us and then got crucified for our sins. That drooling child version of it can fuck itself. I have no interest in it, and I think it's only making people stupider. But the actual wisdom behind it, the story behind the story, and the spirit of it, and the truth, I can agree with. And
what about Noah's Ark, man? That's a weird one. I always wonder about that. No, what you're saying is absolutely true. I hate to say it, but yeah, like if people
Noah's Ark,
they bastardize their idea, these sacred ideas. They bastardize them and manipulate them, and they become fucking Ronald McDonald Happy Meal.
Yeah, very few things though are sacred.
What is it? Pardon me?
Very few things are as sacred
anymore.
No,
in that context, though, I go, what was the Garden of Eden then?
No,
someone asked me that the other day. They said, "Oh, you don't believe in God or Christianity or something." And I go, "Then what do you think Garden of Eden was?" I'm like, I don't know, maybe an extraterrestrial laboratory.
There you go. We can't conflate bizarre stories from history with sacred, though. Sacred is like way more important. Like sacred's like make time for it. This is your actual relationship between you and the universe. This is the actual pillar of what you will call your spirituality, when you die, this is the last thing you think about on your way out. This is really the most important. So we can't conflate our understanding of how the universe is and how squirrely it is and what we're composed of and, all that sort of stuff with some medieval story that was there to manipulate people, right? Which in the case of the Adam and Eve literally does, like, it reads like liberation from slavery. It's
right.
Just like, liberation from being a working class slave and being then cast into the world to be free.
No, it sounds like they had it made in fucking Utopia, Eve, and then got...
Just depends on what you're reading. Like, if you read just the Bible, then you're going to go with the most heavily edited version of it. Where if you can go back into the Assyrian texts that are from the Chaldean Tales, then you're going to have the original, right? And in the original, it's pretty clear that they were prohibited from leaving. And
so then, what was it? Where were they? What was the Eve? What was that? What was the Garden of Eden?
People who were more sophisticated than they were, who had them enslaved.
Earth before the aliens came down, before the Anunnaki got here. I mean, kinda.
No. The story. This is the problem with the story: is that the story requires you to accept things like Nephilim and Anunnaki. Okay. So that's one problem with it that I would have if I really cared, because you can't talk about this without actually acknowledging that there was a people who lived amongst these people that were called the Anunnaki or the Nephilim, or the gods. Ea, Enki, the deal. Whether or not they're gods is I suppose the opinion difference. And I again, don't see any reason to see them as gods, but I do acknowledge that they knew a lot more than the people who lived at the Tigris and the Euphrates at the time, and whoever they were. I mean, like, the Garden of Eden is actually supposed to be in about somewhere in the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia somewhere. It's not actually supposed to be in Mesopotamia because the people were then brought back to... Oh, no, it wasn't Mesopotamia. That's right. Sorry, I'm getting confused. It wasn't Mesopotamia, and then people were brought into the Horn of Africa by Enki after, is the Zechariah Sitchin version. So basically... Which is kibosh. We've got the Bible version of this bullshit.
I got to read that book.
We've got the Bible version, and then we've got the Sitchin version, and, like, none of them are good, right? Nothing's, like, wholly reliable, but...
So you're saying the Lost Book of Enki, which I have behind me right now, don't read it?
The Lost Book of Enki, I don't think that one there has the full story. It might. I can't remember which book of his, because there's 13 of them or something like that.
That's a Sitchin book. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's like book number fucking 9 or 10 or something, or 12.
Everyone thinks he's a crock of shit, though. Even Rogan at this point.
I don't think he's a crock of shit at all. I think Sitchin did a major justice as far as opening up that mythology to people. And like anything else, if you get misguided by it, I don't give a fuck, right? Like, if you've become dumber because of reading Zechariah Sitchin, and no offense, you start thinking aliens exist because you listen to, read Zechariah Sitchin, I don't care, right? Like, people knowing the truth, or people even having an idea of what truth is, doesn't matter to me whatsoever. It's really fun. And I think that he exposes mythologies that people would otherwise have no idea about. And he also shows connectivities between cultures that people would otherwise have no idea about. Symbols, words, ideas. So
hold on. You think that some of the literature is pretty accurate then and pretty good? But
in Zechariah Sitchin. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I've read every book in his Earth Chronicle series.
Yeah.
As well as the Lost Book of Enki, which is not part of that series, I don't believe. I think it's
it's a diluted bestseller, isn't it?
It's just an added after. I believe it's after the Earth Chronicle or the Earth Chronicle series or whatever it's called.
Yeah. Anyway,
but whatever. I'd read them again happily.
You would?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wow, your
they're
fucking
good.
opinions have confused the hell out of me, sir.
Well, no, it's again the difference between having to believe in everything.
Pardon me?
It's the difference between having to believe in everything.
Sorry,
and
buddy.
Being able to be open, and there's some elements to his books that are only in his books, and they're great. But if you can suspend belief and not get manipulated by it, then you're best off, right? If you are really easily influenced by everything you believe or everything you read, then
suspend belief. You're right. That's right. Don't fucking drink the Zachariah Kool-Aid quite that easily.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of claims in there. If you read it and you believe it, you're literally
It's
going
spooky,
to be forced to believe that God was an alien and that humans are genetically modified and that they are visiting the planet every 3,600 years from Nibiru. And that's that, right? It's a simple story and it's easy to wrap, because it's a package. It's a present.
Well, there's a lot of just a lot of the hieroglyphs as well of these tall bearded, dudes with wings, man. Like, it's some striking artwork that's old.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to interpret, really, but they have big beards. They're tall. They have these turbans on, and they look like dark.
Well, that's not all that. Yeah, and that's not unusual at all. Like, if you look at all of the Phoenicians and all of the Chaldeans and Babylonians and Assyrians and the whole area, the whole region, you have people with big ass beards wearing robes with either a turban. It looks like a turban basically, or like some horned hat thing, and it's all over from Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran.
There you go.
The whole region.
Well, what's with the wings, right? What's with those butterfly, those butterfly-looking wings they have? Pardon me?
True story.
I'm going to have to get headphones, Adam. I am sorry that I'm making you repeat yourself. It is quiet.
Yep. Yeah. I'll try to make sure I'm talking to my mic. Egypt has wings.
No, I'm on a phone, so I'm on the phone speaker. So, but anyway, just having earphones would be beneficial. Yeah. Anyway,
Chaldea has the wings. Egypt has the wings. And then
Zarathustra, the Zarathustra dude, he's got those really cool wings that I wanted to get tattooed at one point with the circle, landing feet, and there's another Anunnaki-looking dude in that thing. Which looks like a UFO.
It's not in it. That's the Zoroastrian symbol is basically the same as the other ones. I mean, there's a bit of an evolution, but the Chaldean symbology
flying around in a UFO.
Well, it's not actually a UFO. It's an Omega symbol, or it's. I mean, you could consider it a UFO if you wanted. What's
with the wings, man? What's with the wings? What's with the landing gear at the bottom? I mean, it's ancient aliens. It's an ancient aliens reach right now. I understand that, but
yeah. Well, the landing feet are actually just called feet, and all birds have them. So when you have the wings, you have the feet, right? Like, it'd be like looking at the Department of Defense of the United States at the Eagle and being like, well, look, the feet are obviously landing craft.
Yeah, but they got weird fucking shit too. Like, why is the Pentagon shaped like that?
You've got
why a pentagon?
Oh, absolutely. No, and for the exact same reason. The Pentagon.
What a weird thing.
It's not. No, it's not. The Pentagon's not. Let's just clarify that. The Pentagon and all of the geometry in the United States of America, it's not a coincidence.
No, it's not at all.
No, it's 100% intentional. They are as fascinated with geometry as any fucking sacred geometry fucking hippie. Literally, like if you take like the Wiccan who collects crystals and watches movies on sacred geometry, people who built the Pentagon are way more interested in it and fucking 100 times smarter than she is.
How? And the Pentagon is huge, eh?
Yeah.
Like, it's a massive building.
All the architecture, dude. Architecture itself. People started figuring out how put secrets in it. there is pentagrams in architecture all the time that you don't notice. All the time.
Now, which way is it an inverted pentagram, or which way is the main part of the pentagram facing?
What do you mean?
With the
as far as direction goes, I don't know.
For the if you look, you should look into that. I bet you it's placed in a certain way. I bet you it's
absolutely,
inverted.
Dude.
I bet it's an inverted pentagram.
Inverted to what?
Just the south, just southern. I bet you it's southern facing. I could be wrong.
I don't see any reason for that.
Look that up right now.
Direction of Pentagon. I don't see any reason for that. I think that you're misunderstanding how sophisticated these people are.
No, I'm just curious as to which way the pentagram is facing. Like, is it the top of the pentagram going north, or is it going south?
Pentagram. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting. I mean, this is definitely meaningful, dude. Like they didn't make any mistakes as far as that goes.
What and how old is the pentagram? When was the Pentagon built? Is another one I want to know.
Oh Jesus, where the fuck is this? Oh, the map they give you is not very good. The map sucks.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Well, fuck it. We'll have to look it up some other point.
You can't. It's not that good.
I just can't find it. Like nobody gives a shit enough to have it be in the top part of the information, right?
Well, fuck. That's cool. We're breaking ground here, buds.
Yeah, maybe, but it's. Would we understand it? I don't know. Like I know.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
There's almost no chance that it's going to be as simple as you think. It's not going to be like a fucking inverted pentagram on the north-south axis. That is fucking absolutely dumb, dude. Trust me. I'm telling you that these are geometric people that study fucking ancient geometry and ancient civilizations, and they're all Freemasons like I am, and absolutely none of them would be like, dude, do an upside down pentagram. No, there's going to be like, no, there's going to be like, no, that's a bit off. Okay. No, it'll like, if it's fucking as simple as being able to identify a Fibonacci sequence, you'll be lucky. I mean, it's obviously going to have phi involved because it's the pentagram, and pentagram's based off of phi.
Just weird. Like, let's make our defense building fucking in the shape of a pentagram.
It's not, though.
Creepy.
It's not, because starting in the 1800s, people kind of caught back onto what Greeks were thinking, and that's where magic really started taking off. And the idea that geometric shapes and geometry and magic and manifestations and all the sorts of shit are all interwoven and all interlinked. And so you can't necessarily prove that using geometry to bolster your military will work, but you're sure as fuck gonna try, because if there is a chance, then, or
that's
just even symbologies. Well, of course, even in symbologies. Hitler
started tweaking out with the occult, man. He started doing weird shit.
Well, he ruined the flower of life or whatever. The fucking Nazi
that was
symbol.
actually that's another thing. I know we're always talking about Joe Rogan, but he's a good what do you call that when he's a good measuring stick, I guess. Someone on his show got in trouble for posting Nazi memorabilia just in passing because the Nazi sign was and they got shut down.
Really?
Because they ruined the flower, right? That symbol is actually a Buddhist symbol.
Well, it's Hindu. It's Hindu, and Buddhists use it. And
it's a sun sign.
Yeah, it is geometry, right? Yeah. So you can have fucking hippies all over the world be like, no, you don't understand. It's the symbol of fucking repetition. You just shut up and study your geometry, people who want to fucking give all these associations to things, because it is not something that you're ever going to be able to describe in a fucking volume, let alone in a sentence. It is a lot of things. It is a representation of a formula that is then scaled and cascaded throughout all of life in numerous ways, from biology to chemistry to physics to
Okay.
it's beautiful and it's
I
interesting.
got a question for you.
Sure.
Sorry. Why the G and the Masons? Like what? No?
No. I'm not even going to talk about that.
I want to know.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think a lot of Freemasons want to know too.
Is it God?
Like,
is it G, man?
Yeah, it's G. It's Garrett. It's G stands for Garrett. There's a lot of interesting questions like that in the universe itself, and I think the best answer that I could possibly give you is that there is actually no answer. There's an answer, but there's not. But there's an answer, there's not. So Freemasonry is an organization of people who are traditionally the smartest people in the actual whole world, insofar as syncretized thinking, understand the relativities between religion, mysticism, strange principles, mathematics, everything. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the geometry is inherent in Freemasonry because as a Mason, you are measuring things, right? So the idea of metrics or measuring tools, systems of measuring, right? So, I mean, the whole thing is a matter of developing wisdom. And the first step you have to do is you have to develop knowledge. And then knowledge can eventually, after a couple steps of morphing, turn into wisdom. And wisdom, actually, the way that I said it on Facebook was that when I first learned something, I've got the textbook version of it. And then after a while, it fades away and all I've got is like the Cole's Notes version of it. And then given enough years, I'm left with the Bob Ross version of it.
Okay.
Right? And that's wisdom. Wisdom is the Bob Ross version of things because the technical details are interesting and they're quite often, though, only applied in a very specific manner. Whereas the Cole's Notes is just like the gist of the thing.
Give me the gist.
Exactly. And the gist is applicable it applies over a wider range of things because it's less specific. And then eventually you're left with just a painting, just a Bob Ross version where it's very low resolution and nothing's all that specific and the detail isn't really important, but it's the picture that it creates, and that's the wisdom. And that, interestingly enough, can still be applied. Like, you know, if you learn a lot about, like I learned a lot about plants at one point. Well, I actually forget a lot of names of endogenous hormones and the exact way that of vitamin will do something or the kinetics of something, but I've still got the basic picture, and it's enough to apply things to. Being people that are university students that end up getting jobs in their whatever their vocation is, they go from like this sharp resolution of detail. Eventually, 40 years later, they're like, well, you know, like they remember everything in their classes of compounds, or they, you know, laws are by like the basis of the law, or like, you know, they understand the spirit of the law, but they would have to actually look at the thing to get the exact language again, or whatever it is, right? And that's really the wisdom, is that it just takes a bunch of circling around something that you can't identify exactly on the first pass. You just got to circle around it. And even if what you're looking at isn't necessarily objectively true, you're gaining wisdom. Well, although you do want to try to make it objectively true, but you can't always aliens.
Are you still active in the Masons, or?
Yeah, not really.
But doesn't that mean you have to like go to the show?
Go to the show?
We'll go. Isn't there meetings and things you have to be a part of? Like,
I don't have to go to a meeting. No.
But you got to prove you're pretty smart, though.
Probably should go to a meeting. You don't have to prove you're smart at all. Actually, you don't have to be smart at all to be a Mason.
No.
But it is just a gravitational thing. It's a magnetism thing. A like attracts like. So the people who do join there's different like reasons. Sometimes it's because your uncle and your grandpa and your dad are members, and so you just join. And it's sometimes it's because you're a D. Malay or a Job's daughter, or you married into it because it's all part of your family and your family history. People like me that are isolates, converts, so to speak, we are the ones who joined because of the ideas, because of the philosophies and the community of like-minded people that share the interest and particular flavor of inquiry. So
right. Nobody there wearing Hulkamania shirts, I guess.
Just depends. There's actually a very wide variety of people. So my lodge is in Maple Ridge, right?
Yeah.
Prince David Lodge 101. And that lodge had, 20 years ago when I was a regular member, had all types of fellas, guys that liked riding their motorcycles and guys that liked riding their classic cars. And I think, pretty much everybody likes a good scotch and a barbecue. Regular fellas, right? But
interesting.
It traditionally just happened to attract doctors and lawyers and used car salesmen.
Politicians
sometimes.
Doesn't it get but where does the dark elitism come in?
It doesn't. That's just it. Like, it's a thing of history books. Mostly fictitious. Really, because people weren't a part of it, they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what happened. So there was a lot of fictitious shit made up about it. As
no Illuminati.
Well, the Illuminati and Freemasonry would be two totally different organizations. Bavarian Illuminati is from Bavaria, South Germany or whatever the fuck it is. And Freemasonry, I'd say Freemasonry, at least when it mattered, rejected what we'd call today Illuminati and Bavarian Illuminati, right? There's a lot of Germany was not really a hot spot for good masonry. Germany was a hot spot for like fake masonry. So Aleister Crowley, he became a Mason in Germany through Theodore Roos, who eventually he created the Ordo Templi Orientis. And so there's these clandestine lodges made of Masons who claim themselves to be Masons, but have not actually gone through the accepted channels, through a Grand Lodge that's connected to the United Grand Lodge of England. And Germany was kind of like the hot spot of fakery and clandestine shit.
Right. So. And a lot of symbology and a lot of geometry involved.
Exactly.
Fucking places, which is weird.
Yeah. Symbology and geometry, because the people who understand this stuff are the smartest people in our society. Right? This is like, if you want to guide policy, if you want to guide science and guide engineering and guide somebody who can build a building is obviously like, as far as the practical application of all mathematics, is going to be 1,000 times smarter than just somebody who's attenuated to weirdness or something like that. But their rigidness and their professionalism and their dedication to being a professional, strict, staunch architect is an impedance on their ability to be weird enough to join the ranks of folks who can maybe appreciate geometry in a little bit more of a mystically significant way, right? So, I mean, like, a lot of people, because of their profession, I think, even though they're significantly smarter than the rest of us, are prohibited from really utilizing their intelligence to the same aim that somebody like I can, because I don't matter. Like, I could be as wrong as fuck and nobody cares. But if you're an architect, it's more important that you're correct than that you are enlightened or woke, or that you can see behind the fucking veil. Because if you're incorrect even one iota, people could die, and
the building could collapse.
Yeah, you're responsible first for being legit, you know. So that's where the rest of us come in and entertain them with movies and ideas and podcasts about how what they use practically every day to keep everybody alive also applies to religious ideology and to mysticism and to what we'd call magic. Because obviously what we call magic is just one, and it's this part of the same pot as... That's
the whole fucking other podcast there. Magic. Can we manifest our dreams to this magic, Adam?
Well, you're certainly not going to win any battle that you don't participate in.
Right.
You know?
So you can't just imagine success, you have to work towards it?
Well, even if you can imagine success, you have to... I mean, it's just kind of like a closed loop at that point, right? Because if success is what you seek and you're going to go for it, then obviously you're going to need hard work. But obviously as well, you're going to need to project your mind to it, right?
I want to know if I can use sacred geometry and fucking magic to help me out a little bit.
I would have to say that everybody does without knowing it. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, we can take the sacred out of geometry, but we are composed of geometry. We are geometry. We use geometry, right?
What if you fucking are super aware of it then and use it like directly to manipulate it then? Is that possible? Is that what you're saying right now?
Awareness of it doesn't enhance its efficacy, right? So it'd be like your heartbeat. Like if
I know it's there, but
if you're aware of it, like if you just quiet yourself down and feel your heartbeat until the point where you can feel the dun 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 in your neck and in your chest and feel your heartbeat, is that going to alter it?
Might slow it down a little bit.
Maybe, but you're probably just going to be observing it. It'll probably be the difference between whether you're observing it or not observing it.
I see what you're saying.
Right. So
when you say magic, I get
same thing as. Well, yeah, well, that's just it, though, is that you are going to do what you are going to do. It's whether or not you observe it or not. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you might think that you'll do more magic if you're observant of it, but that isn't, I wouldn't agree to that. I would think that everybody does what they do, observant or not, and being observant of it is 6 of one, half a dozen the other. It might not affect it at all. In fact, being observant of it might even impede it. Being observant of your own processes, what we might call magic, just your ability to get things done or whatever, it could actually be impeded if you observe it, right? Or if you misunderstand it, or just doing your due and being yourself. And people play music and they create crazy stuff. They live life, and life is literally like all this shit is just meant to explain it, right? Books don't produce life. Books don't produce phenomena. Books don't give you something. All they do is explain it.
Yeah, So
you don't do magic because of a book. All you do is you get explained terms that people use to reference when they talk about what they are. It's it. It's all just reference terms, and it doesn't make anything more real. It doesn't make you a better person or a different person.
I think books do. Like, they definitely, well, they make you the more you read, the better educated you are.
Sure, the better educated you are, but when it comes to something like your ability to project or create, or, you know, when somebody hears, the first time somebody hears the idea that their mind affects them to the point where how they think affects them. Your positive thinking affects you positively, and negative thinking can affect you negatively, right? Might not affect the outcome of the world, but it affects you.
I really believe in that, though.
The first time you hear that, though.
Oh, you just glitched.
Oh, you glitched too. There you go. The first time you hear that, that's about it. After that, like that's the secret.
The Secret. Well, that's kind of what I was getting to, man.
But that's
like
it.
That book, The Secret, like the power of manifestation.
Oh yeah, and the book's bullshit, but that's
I think
it. That's literally it, though. Like you don't need any other information after that, because you can extrapolate from that tiny little observation practically everything. Everything to do with self-help, everything to do with picking yourself up by the bootstraps, discipline. There's only one way to change your life, and that's to do it. You know, whatever the fucking motivational, whatever the fuck self-developmental stuff, it all comes down to the very basic principle that we affect ourselves. How we think.
It's not that easy.
Us.
Because the last couple days, because I believe the more you push against it, the more you lean into that, the more that it seems like everything pushes back. Like The Secret is a shiny version of what all these people. Now I got to cat it to Joe Rogan, because he's like, I always talk about The Secret, and basically, they're always interviewing the successful people. They're not talking about the guy at his base, like, I want to be a rock star. I want to be a rock star. Now, I don't think you can just wish things into existence. No. You have to work towards them. But
it's all entertainment.
I think there are some. I know. Of
course, it's based off some nuggets of truth, or else it wouldn't have been this popular. But it's an entertaining version of it. It's like WWE.
The nuggets of truth are just like
WWE is based off of a real sport called wrestling.
Yeah. I love the WWE. Don't shit on that shit.
No, I'm saying, but that's just it. Right?
My obsession with the WWE lately, though, is, on a quick side note, is just all of my heroes were struggling with the very same thing that I struggled with. I'm watching The Ultimate Warrior at 8 years old, going, "Oh my God, he's my hero!" And find out later that he's had mental illness and all these different things. All these wrestlers had substance abuse issues, and I found it all very ironic and fascinating. But anyway. What did Bret Hart just say at his induction speech? He said 99% of people don't live their dream. And that's because 99% of people don't put the work in to achieve them. That's the secret.
I don't think that's true at all. What do you mean? That's a really privileged way of looking at it, though.
What do you mean?
99% of people don't achieve their dreams because their dreams are unachievable.
What?
Yeah.
That's what you think?
Pick a better dream. Pick a more achievable dream. Of course. Yeah. And I feel bad for the kids who get lied to and they're told, like, look, you can do anything. It's a load of shit. You're always limited to a very, very, to whatever spectrum you've been handed. You've been handed everything in life that depicts what it is that you're probably going to have the opportunity to do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, this is just like literally like watch a ball go down the thing. So first of all, it's what country you're born in, who you're born to as far as parents and the culture and situation that you're born in. Right? There's no reason to say, Garrett, that you wouldn't have been born in a Muslim in Iraq under a Shia family, and there's zero chance you would have ever been into metal. You would have never had a tattoo. In fact, you would have been beaten if you know. So there's
I understand that.
Opportunity either allows us or prevents us. Circumstances of life either allows us or prevents us. Right? There's like numerous variables outside of whatever dreamy shit or philosophical stuff that makes it so that somebody in almost anywhere else in the world has less opportunity to do their dreams, especially considering media focuses on our world. So you'll have somebody in Bhutan who's like, I want to be a Twitch streamer, because they see Twitch streamers, right?
Buddy, an Iranian girl just went to jail for 10 years for being a... Did you hear about that?
I think I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, our government put her in jail for 10 years because she was putting herself on the internet, putting filters on. So I'm like, whoa, that's
I think it was OnlyFans.
Wrestler at a peaceful protest, they fucking executed him.
Oh yeah, no, they execute people at peaceful protests in Iran. That's what they do, right?
Like a UFC wrestler was like begging for his life or something, or protesting. But anyway, they're fucking sad.
If you have a massive protest in Iran, you're going to literally get sniped by your government. Well, it's really the Revolutionary Guard. They'll come in and they literally, that's how they tell people not to protest, is they open fire. They kill people who protest normally. Like that's
so
that's not an exception.
Like,
somebody in the crowd. No, in the crowd. That's We Are All Nadia was 2005 or something like that, during the Green Revolution. I had a green armband that I wore for 1 year, a plastic armband in support of the Iranians for the Green Revolution. That's how I met my buddy in Maple Ridge. He's the Iranian guy.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, and they were trying to oust their Islamic dictators.
Well, that's why they want to move here, right? I mean, you can't blame them.
Yeah, of course, especially if they're Zoroastrian. I mean, if you're actually like literally a Muslim in Iran, then you're probably okay with it. And if you're not, then you should probably fuck yourself and stay there and suffer through it with your fucking Muslim people. Because as long as the Muslims are making everybody's life hell in Iran, if you're a fucking Muslim, you should have to go there and suffer through it, is my opinion. But all the Zoroastrians who are actual Iranis, because Iranians are Zoroastrian, right? The Persians are Zoroastrian traditionally.
Right.
If they want to come here to escape the dictatorship, the Islamic Republic, welcome them with open arms, man. I fucking love Iranian people. Definitely. Way more than anybody who fucking supports Sharia law. You can fuck yourself. You can stay the fuck out of Canada for all I care. I have zero interest in being in a country with fucking people who want to have medieval law. You can fuck themselves.
Well, there's a bit of a communication error with the Iranians that I work with, I guess. But so I don't know. There's a lot of cultural.
I think you've got a communication error there too. I think your communication error is with yourself. You probably don't want to bring this up in public.
I don't give a fuck. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to the Bret Hart thing, I think. I disagree to somewhat with you. That I think that 99% of people, you can bring that margin down to maybe 25 or 35% of people will live their dreams if they work hard at it, especially here in fucking this part of the world.
There's the secret. Now you just you nailed it there. Yeah, as long as they have the resources. The value system that we give the world is based on our values. So the world looks at our media and they think that what we have is what's valuable, and so then they want it, right? People will want to be YouTubers or Twitch streamers. People will want to be on American television. So they want to be in Hollywood. They want to be and this is real dreams for people all over the world. We're talking 1 billion people all over the world easy that are alive right now will have a dream that has something to do with Western influence, and they're never going to fulfill that dream because they do not have the resources where they live. They're disconnected from the privileges that we have that give the people in our culture the opportunity to have those professions. They're never going to have them. And that's like a hard billion, man. So maybe in our culture, there's a high ratio of people who can manifest their dreams. But depending on where the information for your dreams comes from and where you live. Again, if you live in Bali and your information comes from North America, American television, you watch Friends and you watch these and that show, and you want an apartment in New York, and you want to, whatever it is your fucking dreams are, because not all dreams are all that luxurious either, right?
But like, to become a wrestling superstar, or even like, for me at this point, it would be just to like get out of construction, start my own business, do some cool shit, make some decent money, and live non-fucking miserable every fucking day, and to remove myself from most people, because most people, in my opinion, are fucking in their own reality that sucks. That's actually toxic. Pardon?
That's evident these days, actually.
So like, I would literally like to make enough money that I can be removed from circles of people I don't enjoy being around.
Mm-hmm.
So like, independent. And I'm saying that these type of goals aren't super. I just think being on this side of the world, that's a lot easier than if I was in Iran, I guess. But
definitely, almost anywhere.
But I mean, when Bret Hart's up there saying this speech, 80% of the people in the stadium, in that place, are going to work. They're not eating the best meals. They're probably not going to the gym. They're probably not doing a lot of things, and have a lot of habits that would lead them in the direction that, hey, maybe one day they could be the next UFC champ or whatever.
Oh,
that's all. Yeah,
well, that's the funny part, is they've got the.
Talked about that. The secret is the power of manifestation through action.
Mm-hmm. That's not a secret. That's just.
It is to some people, though, man. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's simple as shit. Like, that's cause and effect. Not a lot of
people, fuck, dude. Yeah.
How do we repackage things?
Someone asked me what I was listening to the other day, because I have a little speaker, a little JBL speaker, so all day I listen to podcasts while I'm doing fucking labor, because I don't need to think while I'm laboring. So I listen to audiobooks, and someone was like, "What do you listen to?" I don't know, entrepreneur, stop getting an education while I'm sitting here doing this. Oh, I don't like. Literally, that person said, "I don't like to think much," or "I don't like." What did he like? Just was like, "I don't want to think too much. I'd rather just stay in my bubble." Like, basically, what it boiled down. I don't want to think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, well, that was just like, I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to learn anything, so that way I don't have to think.
Yeah. It's perfect. It's just less competition for resources for the rest of us who do want to think. Right.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, so you're saying to me, not everyone gets to live their dreams because it's not probable. Well,
depending on where they live, that's a huge barrier. Like, even with manifestation, right? We want to talk about manifestation or magic. Again, we're talking about resources. It's the greatest limitation that a person will ever have is the resources that they have around them to work with. So you can't feed somebody with a miracle on an island with no food, right? If you have an island with food, then you can have a human being that's like, maybe I'll just walk over here, and then maybe you can even have like a mango fall on their head, or whatever you want as far as like to have some synchronous moment. But you need to have mangoes on that island before you can have a synchronicity experience where you discover a mango, and now it's all good because now you're not going to die. And it requires resources. Right.
I always think about that. Actually, I'm like, sometimes when I'm just going about my day, I'm like, man, like, we're pretty freaking lucky to be born here. Like, just to be born in Vancouver, Canada.
Yes.
Like, I just think about that crosses my mind quite often, where I'm just like, what a lucky shot that was.
Very, man. Very, very.
Especially
very
people
lucky.
that fought the war. Because my grandpa was in the war. He could have been killed in World War II easily. Yep. And I would have never made it. Or my mom wasn't born, I don't think.
Oh,
but just the odds.
Sure. If you go back further than that, though, it's like way crazier odds. Oh, no, this dude, like there's one guy who fucking tripped and fell, and he actually had a fucking stick stab into the back of his head, and it was 1 millimeter to the left, and he would have been a complete invalid. And that person was one of our ancestors 80,000 years ago.
Is this a true story?
No.
Oh.
But the population of the world would be completely different if that guy had fucking stabbed himself in the brain. There would be millions of us who wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So yeah, you got to think about. So then how dare I not try to achieve my goals living here in Vancouver? That's the way I look at it. Actually,
yeah. Well, you've got the opportunity, and that's when you see people that are really privileged complaining. I get it, because everything's relative, and we feel like our grievances are important too, but our grievances are somebody else's dreams. So when you say that, everybody can live their dreams, well, when you have the worst day that you've ever had this week, that's somebody's fucking dreams, because somebody else has it so bad that being Garrett on Garrett's worst week is a fucking dream come true for them.
Yeah.
Imagine that. They get to walk.
Well, didn't I said that to you before you pressed record today? I was like, fuck, man, I'm just not doing good. Blah, 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 blah. But like, wow, I had one of the worst weeks I've had in months. Really bad. Like, I feel like my job's like prison sometimes. Construction's so toxic, and the words that came out of my mouth immediately after I vented to you was, but I still have a bed here. I still have a roof over my head. I'm still got a steak dinner waiting for me downstairs. So, really how bad is it? But it is still bad.
Thank you for watching Questioning Everything podcast with Garrett and Adam on the subject of sacred geometry that we talked on very little, but we did waffle on everything else. If you did enjoy the podcast, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want notifications from when we've uploaded a new video, hit the bell. We do upload clips of the podcast as well onto YouTube. But if you're listening to this on a podcast app like Podbean or Spotify, then just give us a follow. You can always comment in the YouTube comments if you agree or disagree, or you can join us on Discord, and the link is in the comments. Thank you again.
Join us next time for Time